Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. A couple stakes races out at Gulfstream Park this weekend that focus on the Florida breds. It'll be a few more of the Sunshine Stakes races. We saw a couple of them last week. Let's head on out and take a look at race number 6 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. This one is the Sunshine Turf, $75,000 purse, going a mile and a 16th on the turf courts. These are Florida breds, David. I thought this was a pretty tricky race here. Lots of horses you can kind of make some cases for. You have Lord Eddard Stark, who most recently was the winner of the H. Allen Jerkins. That's going 2 miles, so he gets a big cutback here to a mile and a 16th, and it's not like he was in the most fantastic form heading in, kind of a little spotty here and there. I think to the outside, Boppy O makes a lot of sense, but Boppy O isn't necessarily a win machine. He's just a horse who's in nice form and probably been facing some of the tougher company, so not the easiest race, pretty challenging for the bettors here.
Yeah, it's a tough one because you've got horses coming in from all different directions. I mean, in different distances as well. I mean, you mentioned Lord Eddard Stark cutting back from 2 miles. You've got the number 7, if not for luck, stretching out from 5 furlongs. Typically don't see those kind of drastic moves from a sprint to a route or a marathon to a route in the same race, but that is the case here. And you mentioned Boppy O. Mark Casse seems to have 2 of the most talented horses in this race, but they both have questions to answer.
And all of them will meet here in this one. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector and what they think. Fast pace here, no surprise. And that's what I think will be the real variable in this race, because you have Prevent, who's cutting back from 2 miles. And a lot of times when you have horses that show speed going that long, they don't have the same type of speed going a mile and a 16th. But this is a horse who actually was showing speed back at a mile. Right next door, a real wild card in the race is Victory Achieved. Don't know if this is a need the lead horse, but certainly has been very good on the front end in the last couple. You'd imagine they're going to want to do that. And then you talked about the 7 who's stretching out from 5 furlongs. So yeah, it should be an honest pace. I'm just a little curious of how fast and who's really going to put the pedal to the metal here.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, I get why this fast-paced flag is showing up when you run through the potential speeds like that. Having watched a lot of races, though, Gino, we've seen it before. Sometimes when these horses are stretching out from a sprint to a route for the first time, the connections almost get scared to use the early speed as if that's going to sap the horse's finish. So we'll see how aggressively the 5, Victory Achieve, and the 7, if not for luck, are used to go after the number 4, Prevent, because it does feel like Prevent is the sort of one-dimensional frontrunner that you don't want to tangle with on the lead.
Let's meet the field here for the Sunshine Turf. We'll start with the number 1, Ninja Star, who comes off a 3rd place finish over at Tampa Bay Downs. Has been facing open company, was 3rd against Florida breds at Tampa in a stakes race back in 2024, was chasing a lone speed winner last time out. What do you think Ninja Star stacks up with this group? Irad Ortiz Jr. is jumping aboard, so always a positive there.
He's a little light in the buyer department, topping out an 81 in his last couple of starts. I think he's run well in both of those races, especially last time. I know the winner of that race, Drama Chorus, got let go by the bettors at big price that day, 22-1, but that's a horse that has plenty of back class and got back to his better form there. And Ninja Star did well to chase him home. You mentioned the jockey upgrade to Irad Ortiz. We'll see if that really benefits him. I thought that his former jock gave him a great ride to finish 3rd in his last race. Just wonder if the jockey change is going to drag down the price a little bit on this guy.
Next one up is Dios Cole, who was a winner on December the 6th, but got DQ'd and placed 4th. So crossed the wire first that day, but was disqualified and was placed 4th. And it was a tough DQ, David, because although he did come over on the rival, it looked like that rival might have been tiring. And at that point, Dios Cole was moving a lot better. I think that he was probably always going to win that race. Was 3rd in the Showing Up Stakes a couple starts back. And that was a career best buyer speed figure for him in the most recent race. So another one in here that I could absolutely see him running well, probably needs to improve just a little bit, but he's lightly raced and he's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it was a justifiable DQ last time. He really did come in dramatically in the stretch, and how it really affected the horses behind him, I guess, is debatable. But he did cause a foul that day. He still won quite convincingly, and I thought he actually beat a decent second-level allowance field in that spot. Some horses have since come back out of that race to improve their speed figures, so I think that 86 buyer is totally legitimate, if not a little bit light for the field that he was facing on that occasion. And you go to his race 2 back, where he was facing legitimate stakes foes against open company in the showing up. Horses like Silent Heart In a Jam, who beat him that day, they would be major contenders in a spot like this. And just feels like since they've changed around Dios Cole's running style to take him a little farther back in the early stages, he's just produced a really nice finish in each of his last 3 starts. And I can easily project a good trip for him in this spot.
Well, the Game of Thrones fans were really celebrating after the 60-1 win from Lord Eddard Stark last time out, but that was going 2 miles on the turf, and just 2 starts back at a mile and a 16th, he's well defeated by Boppy O in an optional 62 claiming race. But this was a really, really funny race because you could hear Pete Aiello even a little surprised that Lord Eddard Stark gets up late. A lot of times when you have big prices like this, it's horses that are on the lead and they get kind of lost on the front end. Very rarely do you see the horses kind of come from the back like that and get them right on the wire. So absolutely earned that victory. But with his running style, he's not been in the winner's circle all that often because he has to come from way, way out of it. And I wonder how far he's going to be in this race, turning back from 2 miles.
Yeah, I mean, and he did run well to win last time. You could see him kind of hit another gear in the final eighth of a mile, but he also got a great setup that day because a horse that we'll get to very shortly set an unreasonably fast pace for the distance. And I think it created one of those situations in these marathon races where the last move is the best move. And Lord Eddard Stark just happened to be in the position to make the last move that day. I kind of feel like I have to draw a line through that race because it doesn't have so much application to today's situation. I mean, you go back to his prior form, he just feels like the kind of horse that's more likely to maybe pick up a minor award than really contend for the win in a spot like this.
Completely agree on Lord Eddard Stark there. When those races get strung out like that too, there's always something weird that happens. Like the dynamic of the race is much different. You usually get some weird results for horses, like you said, who kind of fall right into it. As we move to Prevent, who will really be the key to this race because he was an absolute runoff last time out. He opened up by about 15 lengths and he really muddled up that 2-mile race on the turf and he set it up for Lord Eddard Stark. Couple races back, 3 starts back, we're seeing him finish second, going a mile and a 16th on the synthetic. This is a horse whose stakes was placed on the turf earlier in 2024, back in August, and he's going to be fast. It's just, is he fast enough at this distance? And is that what they want to do with him, David? Because I just haven't seen him wanting to come from off the pace at all.
Yeah, you sometimes see those videos of marathon races where the jockey doesn't realize that there's another lap coming after they make the first one. That was not the case for Luca Panici. I think that was the case for Prevent. He thought the race might be over the first time around, and he sort of ran at that pace, opened up a huge lead, as you said. I thought, considering how fast he went relative to the final time, he actually held on pretty well to be in the mix at the 8th bowl and only lose that race by just over 3 lengths in the end. But another situation where I feel like I can't really put too much stock in that effort. When you go back to some of his prior form, he just hasn't run quite as well as these horses over conventional route distances.
I actually had the same notes. Didn't run all that poorly to be finished only beaten 3.5 lengths after that kind of early runoff. But I agree with you. I just can't get a really great read on him in this spot. Victory Achieved is a horse who showed a lot of ability. Really overall in his career, he debuted back at Gulfstream Park in 2024. His first start, he had legitimate trouble, came back and he faced a horse named Run Carson in his second start, who's actually a pretty nice winner, a 4-time winner, won a stakes race at Aqueduct and was second in a pretty tough stakes at Turfway not long ago. Then was off for a few months, heads up to Woodbine and moves to the synthetic. And in 3 synthetic races, he doesn't even really get headed. But in those races, it's not even like he's being asked a whole lot. He's just kind of getting to the front end and sort of galloping out there. So I don't know how good this horse really is. I don't really know the company behind him, but he did it pretty easily. And he's bred beautifully, David. So I kind of think he's a wild card in here. I'm curious how you feel Victory Achieved stacks up.
Yeah, he has been visually impressive in these recent victories, especially the last 2 of them. But I think the common denominator in those races is he got away with some pretty soft opening quarter miles each time. 23 and change for sprint distances over that synthetic track at Woodbine really is walking. And he was able to just spurt away from those fields in the late stages. And when horses get trips like that, it leaves me with questions about how much stamina they really have, because they're basically winning those races using pure speed, not showing the staying power to hold that top gear. And when you look at this horse's pedigree, I agree. He's very well bred, but he's really well bred to be more of a sprinting type, especially on the dam side. His dam tried a variety of distances, ran her best races from 5.5 to 6 furlongs. He's a half-brother Super Quest who is a 5-furlong specialist. So I just wonder how far he wants to go, but I do think he's one of the most talented horses in the field.
The key for me, and maybe anybody who wants to play him, can he sit like third in here? Can he get that kind of a trip where he lets a couple of the speed horses go and then maybe gets the jump on some of the deeper closers? The very intriguing victory achieved. Right next door is Treasure King, who's going to step up off of a claim for Victor Barboza Jr. Very good first start off the claim. But that was a 20 claiming group last time out. And now moving into this stakes group where you do have some of these salty older horses who have been, up and down the block a little bit. Do you think Treasure King could hit the board or stack up with this group at all?
I mean, he is going out for a trainer who does great off the claim, but he's getting him from Safi Joseph. So it's kind of moving from one top barn to another top barn. I'm not sure if there's really an upgrade there. And this horse just beat weaker competition last time and did so with a great ride and trip from I Ride Ortiz. Junior Alvarado can't work out a much better trip than that in this spot. And I think this horse is going to have to improve a little bit.
So for the next horse, if not for luck, we can go positives. Won his only turf start, and he was second in a Florida bred stakes race on the dirt at Tampa back in March. But the problem is both of those races and 11 of the 12 races have been shorter than 1 mile. His only race going 1 mile was on the dirt. It was not very good. Now, that was back in 2022. Probably a much better horse now. But I'm just curious what type of trip this guy will get from 5 furlongs on the synthetic stretching out to this race going a mile on the turf course.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of horse that a lot of people are just going to dismiss very quickly because you see the one route try on the dirt. It was terrible, and he's never gone this far on the turf. But you go back to that one route race, he was involved in an extremely fast pace for the distance that day. So I don't want to be too hard on him for that one performance on a surface that's not even his preferred footing. And his one turf race, Gino, I know he only won it by a head, and I know it was only 5 furlongs. He was so much the best that day. He was legitimately 4 to 5 wide all the way around the far turn in a 5 furlong turf sprint at Gulfstream. It's nearly impossible to win with that kind of trip, and this horse was able to do it. So I do feel like he really handled the turf that day, and he's been in pretty good form over his last couple of starts. I look at his pedigree. He's by Neolithic, who I don't mind stretching out at all. And I watch this horse run. He's got this big, long stride to him. I feel like he's the kind of horse that maybe has some untapped potential going longer. And that one turf race is better than it looks. I'm going to use this horse at a price.
That's what makes races like this fun, the state bred stakes races where they get a chance to run for some big money and some black type. And you'll get a lot of connections just saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a swing here, see if we can get this horse stakes placed or win a stakes race, maybe run for a little bit more money. If not for luck is an intriguing runner in here. Next one up, the number 8, Amnestic. Recent turf form is not bad. Actually won the last turf race, just not a win machine. The same thing for the outside runner when we talk about Bapio in a minute. Amnestic is a horse who's been facing a little bit lesser company, but overall pretty consistent and decent form, but just 3 for 24.
Yeah, and his only 2 competitive buyers have come at Presque Isle Downs on the synthetic course there. That form doesn't always translate to other tracks. And I watched his last race. I know it was on the all-weather at Gulfstream. He got a good trip and just didn't really have any finish. So I think he's a little overmatched in this spot.
Rounding at the field, Bapio, probably one of the horses they'll all have to beat in here, but with the outside draw, might not be the easiest trip because he likes to sit a little off the pace. He doesn't want to be way out of it. And sometimes when you have the outside draw, it could be a tricky spot to want to sit. You could get parked a little bit wide. So wouldn't be shocked if they have to make a decision here, maybe get a little more aggressive or take back a little more. But Bapio does have some of the stronger races and has faced some pretty tough company.
Yeah, he's put forth nothing but performances that make him competitive here, whether it be on turf or the synthetic recently. He's just not really a win type, as you mentioned. I mean, he gets generally good trips in his races. He's in contention in mid-stretch, and he just can't always get there. I mean, you're looking at this race here. He was able to ride the rail every step of the way. It opens up for him in mid-stretch, and he finishes just fine here, but he's never really a threat to the winner. I will say the horse that beats him, Jerry the Nipper, is a pretty nice horse who's been competitive in stakes company in the past, and maybe is a little bit over the hill at this point of his career, but was able to produce a pretty good effort there. He's the class of this field, Bapio. He's run some of the fastest numbers. I just don't really have much interest in betting him on the win end.
One of the trickier races to handicap this weekend was the Sunshine Turf. So let's get to selections, David. I feel like this is a race where we'll probably have different ones. And you probably talk to 5 different people. They might have 5 different horses picked on top. How are you going to stack them up here?
I toyed with putting that long shot, if not for luck, on top. I think he's going to run better than people expected here, but I get that he's a little bit of a reach in this race. So I went for the number 2, Dios Cole, as my top pick. I just think this horse is coming along nicely in his last few starts since they started rating him in mid-pack and making that one run. He gets a jockey upgrade to Tyler Gaffalio in here, and he's drawn well.
I'll give Victory achieved a little bit of a shot on top. We'll see if this horse can sit off the pace and get a trip. We mentioned Boppy O loves those underneath spots. I could see Lord Eddard Stark coming and running for a minor award, as we mentioned. So I'm going to go 5-9-8-3, David 2-7-9-1. However you're playing them at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, we wish you the best of luck.